Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the sports betting show brought to you by a real statistics professor. This is the 2024 middle bowls. What are we calling these, Cousin Jared?
I don't know. Not the beginning and not the end, so I guess middle works.
Middle bowls. Bowls that are happening right after Christmas here, I guess. There are some bowl games between now and you may be watching this in Christmas, and we have picks for those, of course, but we're not going to cover them on this show. Because you're 19 bowl games this week. So
yeah, that seems like a lot. I don't know if it's the way that the calendar has fallen or not, but I'm never going to complain about more college football. So give me all that I can handle before it goes into hibernation for a little bit.
We get a ton on Friday, which I think surprises me a little bit. But we're going to get the bill come New Year's Day when we've gone from, remember back in the day when there were 7 bowls or 6 bowls or whatever on New Year's Day, and now there'll just be 3. Well, Anyway, here's how we did metrics of the season, whatever, if you're looking on screen. Reminders about the model. It is a player-based model. Ratings reflect the current roster. That matters a lot in bowl season.
Yes.
We see every year.
And I want to give a caveat here that I have done my best to keep up with the transfer portal. But there is only so much you can do when 1,500 players or whatever ridiculous number has entered. I promise you, if you are a fan of a specific team, you know more than we do. Take that into consideration. But for the most part, I think we got a majority of the most important players noted here, whether they're playing. Some people declared for the draft but are still playing. So try to take all of that into account. You may know more than us. I will acknowledge that up front as far as rosters go, but we have tried to capture the most important ones.
And that's a good point there. I think the hard part is figuring out who's in the portal but is playing. Because every coach has different rules on that. It's player by player, coach by coach. Who's declared for the who's declared for the draft. Okay, but is he still going to play? We had a game last week where we didn't think one guy was going to play because he was in the transfer portal, and we thought the other quarterback was going to play, and all of a sudden they completely flipped. It's you're watching the first couple of drives, and you're like, this just isn't even what I expect. It's difficult, but we do our best here with the opt-outs, of course. We are projecting an average game, and this is where I just want to make sure again people are on the same page with us here, right? There are fewer and fewer games remaining, but we still want to use the same principles of this. One game is a big unknown, especially this time of year, and so we're going to keep our units kind of the same size because we're dealing with the same thing. We want to keep our same principles. If it's 3 a.m. and you're at the blackjack table, it's been a good night, and you're like, I'm doing one more hand, you don't play that hand any differently, right? When you say it's time to go to bed, I'm doing one more hand, you do the same thing, right? You still split when you split. So that's what we're going to do here. Anyway, the model give A, B, C, love, like, lean. We will choose the plays what we think are really good, specifically plays. And if you want to get all of the picks, everything we have to offer for all these different sports, detailed notes, you can do that over on Dub Club. There are links in the show description, and I've been meaning to do this, but we've got a lot of information about each game. And so the first game we're going to talk about here, Rutgers and Kansas State, and you can pause on the screen if you want to zoom in and take a look at all the information. If you're with us over on Dub Club, you've got this for every single game. You've also got charts. Everybody likes charts. Charts are fun. So we've got a bunch of good things over there on Dub Club, but then the prettier graphic that you're more used to seeing, your Rutgers and Kansas State. Again, we've got 3 games happening between now and Christmas, 3 picks for you, but we're going to pick it up day after Christmas, 5:30 p.m. We're going to go over 50 as we're projecting an average of about 55.6, somewhere in the mid 50s. Cousin Jared, our key numbers here in the low 50s, 51 and 52. So as long as we're playing, 50 and a half, same value, 49 and a half, same value, all those really good plays here. We think this should have more than what's expected. Cousin Jared, why do we think that?
I think people are just betting, as far as the total is concerned, they're betting the names of the teams. And historically, these have been good defensive teams that are just not great defensive teams this season is kind of the gist of it. Kansas State not too impacted by opt-outs or transfers or anything of that nature. Rutgers does have some important players out, but the key part there is those players were injured as the season went on. They were playing without these players for the last few weeks of the regular season, and Rutgers offense was not the issue then. So no large, I would say major weather issues as of right now. We're recording this Sunday night, so always subject to change. But as of right now, no major weather issues. So I would just say this total has been set based on the names of these two teams and not, based on anybody who's actually watched them play this season.
Well, and whether there should be no weather issue on this one anyway, being played at Chase Field down there in Arizona, so we'll be able to cover the roof. So we're set there. I'm assuming if it's a nice night, they'll open the roof up, of course. But because I think you make a good point. And I think that really applies to Rutgers specifically, because Kansas State this year did at least have a few games that they really did slow down and play that old school style of Kansas State football. But Rutgers, it seemed like all year was a team that was typically having higher scoring games than anybody was expecting, because this is the first year we've seen from Rutgers team them have any pulse whatsoever with pace, and still below average, as you can see there on screen, but not, in the bottom 10, they've been, with really great defenses and offenses that couldn't move the ball. Things are a little bit different there. And so that's, I think, the key here, leading us to the over 58 grade play in the whatever's in Phoenix Bowl. Was this the Rate Bowl? I don't know. Arkansas State and Bowling Green. This is the 68 Ventures Bowl in Mobile, Alabama. The time of the year when Alabama shines, all the different cities, because there are like 4 bowl games in Alabama. It's
definitely the most bowl games per capita, for sure.
I would think so. Although Orlando gives them a run for the money by themselves. They've got 3. We've got this one under 53 B grade. Model has it right around 50. Cousin Jared, we've liked some of these unders with these MAC schools for a lot of the season, in the right matchups with a lot of these teams kind of setting up like Bowling Green, much better on defense than they are on offense, especially when you look at, a team like Bowling Green going as slow as they are. Arkansas State wants to do a little bit of the opposite. They are better on offense than defense, wants to go a little bit faster. So a little bit of a clash of two styles here. Cousin Jared, what are you liking specifically about under 53 on this one, knowing that each team wants to do something a little bit different?
Yeah, so the big thing for me here is Bowling Green has 4 offensive players that are rated as above average. So their best offensive lineman not playing, entered the transfer portal. Their best running back not playing, entered the transfer portal. They do have Connor Bazelak, their quarterback, who's playing approximately his 15th year. He is the Greg Pallas of college football. So Bazelak is still playing. The one that I do not understand, Harold Fannin Jr., I think the best tight end in college football, according to Sideline, and he finished second in the tight end of the year award to Warren from Penn State. He had the highest receiving grade of all receivers and tight ends combined by Pro Football Focus for the whole season. He plays for Bowling Green. He is not in. He's draft eligible. He has not entered the transfer portal. He is not declared for the draft. He has not said he's sitting out. I have no idea why he's playing in this game. My best guess is that I just can't imagine him playing this game 100% for the entire length of the 4 quarters. Like, he has way too much to lose. And this guy's so good. Like, I was thinking about this the other day. There's only been 3 players, non-Power 4 players in A&M games that I've gone to where I've had to look up the player halfway through the game. It's like, who is this guy? One of those was Chucky Keaton from Utah State. That was the year before they went to Auburn and beat Auburn on the road. Utah State did. Second one was a guy named T.Y. Hilton playing for Florida International. And then this guy. I was like, how is this Bowling Green tight end wide open 15 yards down the field every time? Turns out he's really good. Anyway, the combination of offensive talent that's going to be on the sideline for Bowling Green not playing in this game, combined with I don't understand. why Fannin is playing this game. I don't know if you're going to get full 4 quarters from him. And so all that combined, I think Sideline may be overestimating this total a little bit. I think it may be more like 48. And if that's the case, this is an A grade in my book, going under the 53.
And as we talked about in the last game, right, your key numbers 51, 52, they're in the upper 50s. So 52 and a half, 53, 53 and a half, all those are great numbers. We did lock these in here today, Sunday, the 22nd, as we're recording this here. So nothing should be too old by the time you're watching this. But if you're watching it later in the week, who knows where numbers go. So right now, part of it is getting those key numbers there. But Kissinger, again, and you kind of talked about it there, and just want to remind, again, the viewer, these are, player-based. This is a player-based model now, and the ratings here are what we think is going to be on the field, again, to our best guess. And that makes some teams change a lot in the rankings. You're going to see it, of course, with Georgia, losing their quarterback, that sort of thing, or whether it's a bunch of opt-outs. And so you'll have teams who then they fall behind teams that they're clearly better than. It's just, I don't know who would have theoretically opted out of a 5-7, it's not really apples to apples. So it's don't get caught up on the ranking as much as the rating here when we're looking at this. And like I said, a lot of offensive talent here potentially missing out, and a great spot here to go under on the late Thursday night game. We're going to start us off Friday at noon, Oklahoma and Navy. This is a game I'm going full neutral, no home field for either team. But this game is in Fort Worth, and there are a lot of Oklahoma fans in the DFW area. So if they are motivated to come out, this could be a huge OU crowd. I'm not counting on that necessarily. I don't know what'll happen. A lot could have to do with the weather, of course, if it's a nice day. Sometimes in DFW in these times of year, it might be a 71-degree day, and so it might be a great day to go out and watch football. The year Baylor played in against Air Force, it was like 14 degrees, and it was terrible.
That was miserable. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I was having I don't want to say flashbacks. No, flashbacks is a good word. I was having flashbacks when we made this pick. In
the Armed Forces Bowl.
But I think that there are reasons this one is a little bit different, I would say.
And that one we took Air Force. The weather was miserable, and there was Baylor not even half motivated to be in a bowl game that year. This one, with Oklahoma, they've been down enough here the last few years. I assume they're going to try at this point. It's a lot of young guys. They're playing for next year, so the offense never was that great to start with. So honestly, whatever's happening with them in the transfer portal on the offensive side doesn't really matter much.
You could not be more accurate. Oklahoma had so many wide receivers who were injured this year. Like at one point, they had the top 6 wide receivers injured. Their top 6 wide receivers could have transferred. It makes no impact on how we gauge this game.
At some point, these guys weren't even in the depth chart that I was bringing up because they were injured, and so they were like falling out of like we aren't even playing them, type thing. And there's the other guys, and so it's like top 6 is like, and these other guys, like all of them, just such a mess there. We are going to take Oklahoma in this one, -3. It's an A grade pick. A couple of thoughts on this one for your cousin Jared. First off, we have this projected Oklahoma by about 10. We think they're going to go out and play. Not that Navy won't go out and play, but this Oklahoma defense has been carrying them all season. And that if they show up, if they play like they did against Alabama, that defensive unit's going to keep Navy from doing much of anything. But a couple questions here. First off, why do you what do you think about fading a military academy in a bowl game, all that extra time to prep, right? There's that discussion that we have to have, of course, here. And then number 2, you prefer laying 3 versus a money line of something like -160, -170. I want you to talk about why that would be the case in this game as well.
Okay. So let me answer your second question first. And that is, we've said many times on this show, I prefer the money lines. Kind of throw that out the door in bowl season because who the hell knows? And so, like, for me, really, it's like -150 is kind of like the line where I'm just like, I'm not laying anything more than -150 in a bowl game. So, and obviously, of course, laying 3, I'm perfectly fine with. If it were like 3.5, I would have maybe thought about it a little harder. I think we'll have an example of one where I still decided to lay 3.5.
I was going to say, well, hold that thought, viewer. We'll we'll circle back around on that exact thought.
Yeah, so that's just completely a bowl season thing. Like I just don't want to lay big odds during bowl season. As far as military academy, and you and I talked about this before we made our picks for the Army and Navy game, but I was worried about Army in that game because it seemed like a huge letdown spot for Army after winning the conference championship game.
Winning it the way they did at home.
Yeah. It was a really big deal for them. And even though it was the Navy game, like it was going to be really hard to get up to that level again for the second week in a row. I think we might be seeing the same thing with Navy in this one. Their whole season came down. I mean, obviously they had a good season, but it's all about beating Army, and they kind of reached that pinnacle. And now Navy, I think, is going to be like, we got to do this all over again against an Oklahoma team who basically shut down Alabama. For me, the biggest part of this is with the extra time to prepare Brent Venables' defense, Oklahoma's defense definitely having been the most consistent unit, obviously, compared to their offense all season. Yeah. I just think that Oklahoma's defense is going to be too much. Navy's defense, not great. I think Oklahoma's offense will be able to do enough. If Oklahoma wins this game, like this feels like a 27-10 type game. I don't think it's going to be very high scoring either. But I just think it's going to be really tough for Navy to score enough points to win this game.
All right. Georgia Tech and Vanderbilt will be right after that, 3:30 p.m. Eastern, still on Friday, December 27th, in the Birmingham Bowl. We've already, covered at the state of Alabama having bowl games. We are going under 51.5. We've got this at 45. This is one of our top plays for this set of bowl games. Cousin Jared, for me, this came down to just, I don't want to say a gut feeling, but a more like my brain going, we've played some Georgia Tech unders this season, and they've gone really well. We've played some Vanderbilt unders this season. It's gone really well. I think we've been seeing it really well with these two teams on the unders all season. They're playing each other. The model says go under. I'm like, let's do it. That's my take on it. What's your take?
Yeah, and I would say we're going under 51.5, right? And I think this is exactly the conversation that we had with Vanderbilt in one of their other games later in the season. And we were like,
I remember the conversation. I remember who it was, but
yeah. And I think it's a similar thing to where I think with the 51.5, they're trying to give you a little bit of pause and be like, do I need to get 52.5? When I don't think that matters. I think the most important number is more like, 48 or 48.5. And so I would say, don't get hung up on the 51.5 there. Aside from the fact the numbers that are on your screen right here, both of these teams play slow. Vanderbilt's defense definitely better than their offense. We talked about it before. Vanderbilt's offense, their reputation has been inflated by that win over Alabama for the entire season, in my opinion. And of course, I mean, I will admit this, my own personal love affair with Diego Pavia, of course. And Georgia Tech, same thing. Like their defense is a little bit worse, but in general, they are not a team where the offense is a lot better than the defense is. The other thing I would say about Georgia Tech is they have lost one of the better receivers in the country, Eric Singleton Jr. He has transferred out. He was by far their best receiver statistics wise and according to Sideline. So that makes their offense even more one-dimensional. And I don't see either one of these teams running away with it. Offensively, I think both defenses are going to come ready to play. And like I said, don't be worried about that 51.5. Like, jump on it now. The important number is like 48. Anything 48 or above, go under.
The model has this at 45 because, Jared, I'm curious for people who like to do alternate totals. Again, I don't necessarily recommend doing this as because the juice can get out of control. But here and there, it might make sense. I'm wondering, model says 45. If you've got an alt under 44.5 or 45.5, I assume that's going to be in the plus 200 range from the books. And Jared, would you dabble in a market like that? Does that get you excited knowing that it could be a game that stays in the low 40s?
Yeah, I think that's fine. There are very few times where I would say that the alternate total might be worth it. But yeah, if you could get like a under 45 at like super plus odds here, I think there are worse plays that you can make, or even like a 48, like a plus 120. Like I think that would be good too.
Yeah, and they're probably not going to be any weather issues there, unfortunately. That we would love to see some of that though. So a super cold front come through Alabama, and make it 10 degrees or something, but really not any weather concern or impact in that one. To one where there might be a little bit of weather impact, you never know. Memphis is at that part of the country where it can be really nice, it can be really miserable. So not really sure what will happen with the weather in this one, but otherwise, what looks to be potentially a high scoring affair between Tech and Arkansas, especially when you look at the pace. We're going to actually take Tech on the money line at even money. It's a B grade pick. Model says Tech wins this 52% of the time. Cousin Jared, this is a coin toss between two very average, solid, however you want to look at it, teams. And so we got even money. First off, of course, what's your take? How do you see this game? But I'm also curious where the line is for you on playing Tech, knowing the model only says 52%. Is plus odds drawing a line, minus 105? What are you thinking about with these odds?
Yeah, I think probably even money is probably where I would draw the line on Tech. Maybe minus 105. I don't know. The thing with Arkansas is they got to 6 wins. They got to a bowl game. I feel like if I'm Sam Pittman, I avoided being fired. I got to 6 wins. I got to the bowl game. I feel like my job is about done. And you got that sense from the way that the transfer portal has worked out for him as well. Arkansas, I think more than any other SEC team maybe, had a ton of guys enter the portal, had multiple good players on offense and defense enter the portal and won't be playing in that game. But even when you look at their 6 wins, you have to remind yourself that this is a team that lost to Oklahoma State this season. And, they beat Auburn. They beat Mississippi State. We talk about fluky wins. I don't know if this one's in the top 5, but that win that Arkansas had over Tennessee back in the first week of October, that was one of the flukier wins, especially with how the season played out for both of those teams. If they had lost that game to Tennessee, the narrative around Arkansas is completely different than what it is right now. And on the other side of it, Texas Tech just kind of like ho-hum. I think they're 8-4. Like they had a solid season in my opinion for Tech. And I try not to talk about vibes too much, but transfer portal vibes. These teams could not be any different. Arkansas, all of their guys are leaving. Texas Tech is getting some really good guys in via the portal. I know those guys aren't playing, but it just seems to be sending a message that like, hey, we're on the up here at Texas Tech. Arkansas, it's like, we're hanging on by the skin of our teeth. You want to come play for us? And I was thinking about this while I was exercising today. I don't think there's a reason that Texas Tech cannot be the Ole Miss of the Big 12. I think that they are perfectly capable of doing that as far as, getting their NIL in the right place, really attacking the transfer portal. It's going to be hard for them to recruit out of high school like some of the other big schools in Texas. And they've got to compete with the Houstons, the Baylors, all of those types of schools. But in the transfer portal, I think they could do really good work. Anyway, I'm high on Texas. I like the Texas Tech. I like the direction they're going. Arkansas is just like, I feel like they're hanging on for dear life here.
And Texas Tech has had pretty good bowl success here lately with this set of players, some of them obviously not there. But this coaching staff, which is in their 3rd season now with Joey McGuire, won in his first season in a bowl against Ole Miss, and then won last year against Cal. And those are 2 very different styles of opponents and abilities to execute in a bowl game against there. And so they've done well in bowls. So that doesn't necessarily mean, again, anything's a lock, right? We understand that Tech has had some games that they've blown too. But the idea being, we think they clearly know how to get their players, prepared for it. And so at even money, all the things you talked about, we think this is a pretty solid investment here. Again, beat grade for us there. Also on Friday night, Syracuse and Washington State. We're going to go under A grade play, under 59.5. Your key numbers are the upper 50s, 58 and 59. So we get the wins on both of those. Model says 55. Cousin Jared, both of these teams want to go fast, and Syracuse has a good offense. So there is a reason why this total is high.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we specifically like, whoa, that's just too high, too far to go?
Yeah. Okay. So everything you see about Washington State over there, ignore it. They lost a quarterback, lost a running back, lost their offensive coordinator. I understand that maybe Syracuse doesn't have the best defense in the world. That 111 that Washington State has, I don't want to say that may be generous. Maybe they've got a bunch of depth that we don't know about, but I would be surprised if Washington State has a ton of depth and they're going to be able to, put up a lot of points. Even if they continue to play
especially falling from out of the Pac-12, that's one of the things that we talk about, always the difference between the Power Four, and everybody else, right? Is that you don't have that depth at some of those levels. That's kind of now what Washington State's at.
Yeah. And even if they play fast, which there's no guarantee that they're going to do it, they could just be playing fast just to have, 3 and outs, 6 plays and outs, something like that. Doesn't mean they're going to be scoring points, even if they continue to go fast. So I think we don't know anything about Washington State offensively is where I'm going with this. And the fact that we're getting 59.5, all of those key numbers in the 50s, I think you're going to have to have a very specific type of game to get this into the 60s. So when you don't know much, let's say project an average outcome, which Sideline has 55 basically. And so just give me the odds of this game not getting into the 60s.
Yeah, definitely a key number play here. Sometimes we say, hey, don't worry about the key number. Here's the other key numbers that matter. We're like we talked about earlier. We talk about it every week. There's a game like that on the spread, and but this one's not necessarily one of those. This is one of those where, hey, 55, 50, 59, all decent probabilities for bowl games. Obviously, right tails, kind of can get out there kind of crazy on that because you just randomly see the bowl games that's like 59 to 53. But otherwise, if it plays like a normal-ish football game, right, those mid upper 50s make a lot of sense there. So that is the Holiday Bowl. That's the 8 p.m. game Friday night, 10:30 p.m. Eastern out in Las Vegas. Your Texas A&M Aggies and USC. A lot of vibe discussions here on Southern Cal and the transfer portal. I don't know if you were planning on touching on that, Cousin Jared. Otherwise, we still think with what's left of these teams and who we think is playing, that this Texas A&M team is the better team here in what's likely going to be a neutral site. True type 50-50. Obviously USC is closer, probably not quite known for as much as filling up the stadiums. I imagine a handful of A&M alum will be out there, so I'm roughly even crowd. And so, hey, no real edge there. And I know that the Pac-12 has played their title game there. None of these players were part of any of that, so it's not even like they've got that experience. And so we think A&M, we've got them winning by about 6.5, 6, 7, something in that range. And so we are going to lay 3.5. This is the game we referred to earlier. B grade pick here on the Aggies, Cousin Jared. So obviously, let's loop back to that. Why are we laying 3.5 here instead of the minus 160?
Well, this is minus 170, and I'm not again minus 170, way out of the realm of what I'm going to do. So I'll lay the 3.5. I think there's going to be quite a bit of A&M fans there. I looked into tickets myself, but just not good. Not a good time to be traveling around the holidays is what I would say. This might be. I can't remember the last time A&M went out west for a bowl game, so I think there's going to be plenty of A&M fans that are looking for an excuse to get out there. So I will acknowledge up front that A&M is missing their 3 of their best defensive players. All entering the draft, all opting to skip the bowl game. If there's a way, they're all, and the thing is if there is anything that Mike Elko can paper over, they had good depth at the defensive line, Elko being a good defensive coach. I think that if there was one area where they could take a little bit of a hit, it would be in their defensive front. They've got all of their offensive line playing. They've got all of their other skill players back. Offense should be about what you would expect from the regular season. USC, on the other hand, they have lost a lot. This feels like if I feel like USC may just want to simulate this game and get past it, or like play and fast forward. I don't know, whatever they would want to do. They've got so many players in flux, and it feels like it's going to be a big year for Lincoln Riley coming up with how he can kind of revamp this roster for next season. If USC is to win this game, I have lots of questions about how Lincoln Riley managed the quarterback situation this year, where you had is his name Maliava.
I was going to bring that up.
I don't even know how to pronounce his last name, but he was at UNLV last year, looked good, and clearly wasn't one of the top couple of guys at USC. It's just kind of by happenstance in the season. They're like, well, next man up, I guess. Nothing else has worked all season, and he's looked decent to this point. I still think there's way too much for USC to overcome in this one, but if they win this one, it's because it's going to be on the shoulders of their third string quarterback. And at that point, why wasn't he playing more earlier in the season?
Yeah, I guess, is he the guy next year now, or are they going to go out and get someone else in the portal? I guess we assume there's probably a good quarterback out there in the portal. I don't know. It gets confusing with USC specifically with trying to figure out, exactly what's going on there with all their portal stuff. To me, those numbers there kind of reflect the best case scenario.
Yeah.
Because Jared, you mentioned simulating the game. That's about what they did last year against Tulane, right? And lost that whatever.
Yep.
I don't know, was it Sugar Bowl, the Cotton Bowl?
Cotton Bowl.
It was Cotton. And so, I think there is a part of me that, hey, a little bit that was embarrassing last year, so they might have a little more motivation, except this doesn't feel like the right,
right.
people staying around, guys coming in and out.
Yeah.
Who knows with regards to that. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of guys who have the ability to play now who will be very excited about it, but also, are they then very good, right, if they weren't playing before? So there's just a lot happening with regards to that. And just in general, we trust this A&M team is left in better shape now than what has happened at USC with the portal. So we're going to lay 3.5 with the Aggies. That is a B grade pick. That is your late night Friday game. Then we're starting back up on Saturday, one of two noon games, Boston College and Nebraska. We've got Boston College winning this 57% of the time. We've got this as one of our favorites, the WTF game, wrong team favored, as we're getting plus 125 on BC. A grade play. We think they're the better team at this point. Cousin Jared, why do you think that is, that the market is so much higher on Nebraska relative to Boston College than we are?
I would guess probably just the name at quarterback. Raiola is a known name. If I had kind of a bone to pick with that, I don't think he showed much improvement throughout the season. Somebody his age, you would have hoped to have seen improvement as the season went on. And not that he was bad. He just, I don't feel like improved a lot over the course of the season. He's still young. He might figure it out. And maybe the other thing I could talk myself into is that, Dana Holgerson has had an entire, extra few weeks as the OC there at Nebraska. And, maybe he could cook something up here in a few weeks and, get a preview of what's to come. But and maybe Matt Rule can overcome this, but I think there was just such a load off of Nebraska's shoulders for finally making a bowl game for the first time in 6 or 7 years or whatever it was, that if not for Matt Rule, I think it could be, easy for Nebraska to be like, oh, we got it in the bag. We accomplished our goal. We got this monkey off of our back. Boston College, on the other hand, nobody expected anything of them. And I still have no expectations of Boston College right now. Before this game, before looking at what the line was, I just would have said these two teams seem literally identical to me. Not even looking at sideline. I just would have said these two teams seem exactly the same to me. I would take any team that's plus odds, and Boston College just happens to be the team that's plus odds. And that's basically the whole story for me on this one.
Grayson James for Boston College gets basically the same grade from sideline that Raiola gets for Nebraska.
And he only started half the season, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's kind of to your point there that it's a little bit of name stuff on the quarterback. It's not that he won't be great necessarily, doesn't have the tools, that he might make a nice little leap here. But unlike you, I think he kind of reached above average status after a start or two, and then all of a sudden
Right.
kind of plateaued.
Yep.
Didn't get some of the improvement that some of the other guys across the country got based off of their play. Because if you are a Red Sox fan and a BC fan, are you excited or not about the fact that this game is being played at Yankee Stadium?
I'm probably not excited by that. I still just have difficulty in general with the whole bowl games and baseball stadiums. Square peg, round hole. I don't quite understand it, but whatever. If I'm Boston College, I'm probably so happy with how this year went that maybe I won't care. But in general, my first thought is I just don't like football and baseball stadiums.
Well, it's a commutable drive, so I don't know if we'll see some BC fans there. I assume we'll see a lot of Nebraska fans there.
I would also assume that, yes.
They should be very hungry to get to a bowl game. So monkey off the shoulder. We'll see how they perform now against the BC teams. Unlike you, they just seem to be overperforming expectations all season long. So we'll give them one more chance to do it again at plus 125. Iowa State and Miami. Because this is the opposite situation we talked about before, so a good chance for us to kind of dive into that. One of the rare games where you are laying the odds here with Miami rather than the 3.5. We are laying minus 160 with the Hurricanes. Model still thinks they're a very solid team. Model still thinks Iowa State's very average. We said Iowa State was very average going into the Big 12 championship. An average for this level, right? Big 12, where everybody was average, right? And we said it there that, Arizona State's been playing really well and Iowa State just hasn't been anything special. And so you never know what you're going to get come bowl season, especially with some of these schools when we're getting to expectations and both these teams just missing out on a chance at the playoff, getting into the playoff. And so since we don't know all that, we're just going to throw all that out and say, hey, Miami's the better team. Model says they win 86% of the time. Not a lot of pace to be expected in this one. But otherwise, why do we like Miami minus 160 so much rather than laying the 3.5?
Yeah. So, okay. So the answer to that question is Miami's defense. That's like the answer to the question. I feel like there is a higher likelihood of shenanigans in this game than your average bowl game, especially when you've got a team like Iowa State that, to your point, is maybe a little bit overrated, but at the same time, like, they're still Iowa State. They're still coached by Matt Campbell. Like, they will find a way to make this game close. That's like Iowa State's MO in wins and losses. They're going to find a way to keep the game close. The big thing for me here is like Cam Ward. Like, if he's playing, this Miami offense is going to go 100 miles an hour for the entirety of the game. And, you can't say that everything that Pat McAfee says is 100% true, but he postulated on game day the other day that Cam Ward playing in this game, there might be some type of NIL incentive for playing in the bowl game. And if that's the case, I'm all for it. We've gone so far off the deep end with NIL, and not that it's wrong or anything, but just the no rules. It's just very hard to keep track of everything. I am all for this. The more good games that we could have with good players playing, I am all for. So kudos to whatever Miami did that allowed Cam Ward to play in this game. I am all for it.
Yeah. So we've got this as one of our top plays. Cousin Jerry, you mentioned shenanigans. Of course there will be shenanigans. This is the Pop-Tarts Bowl.
Yes.
I think there should be 3 mascots this year that we get to eat.
And
I say
a real toaster in the trophy,
and a real toast in the trophy. I mean, if you're going to do it, you should do it right, and they are doing it right there. For the Pop-Tarts Bowl there in Orlando. Reminder, you can support the show here on Dub Club. There's picks only package for $19.99 per month. That caught me off guard. I was like, I thought there were more games to this slide. But some promos there in the show description in order to get a discount there if we've helped you make money this college football season. And it'd be hard to imagine not with how great it's been. We encourage you to check that over there on Dub Club and support us. That means we're down to one last game here for this week. Again, there are a ton of games Friday and Saturday, 19 this week. I believe Saturday with its 8 games is the most bowl games in 20 years on the same day.
Wow.
And so it's going to be an action-packed Saturday. One of the later games here, this is the Alamo Bowl, a conference game between BYU and Colorado. Cousin Jared, that's just the first. Oh my gosh, I can't imagine. Like, how do you have two teams from the same conference playing each other?
I did a double take on this, and I believe this is the Alamo Bowl.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, when one of the conferences no longer exists, this is the type of thing that happens. I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I assume they didn't play this season. I didn't actually look at it. I was like, I hope they didn't. And they were like, oh, they haven't played this season, so it's okay.
Yeah, surely they didn't play this season, or else we wouldn't have had all those asinine tiebreakers for the Big 12 title game. So yeah, I think if they had played each other, things would have been much easier for everybody there the last week of the season.
Yeah, maybe. Anyway, that 10-2 BYU, 9-3 Colorado. This is the consolation Big 12 title game because these were the other two teams that were tied with Iowa State and Arizona State. We've got this as under 54.5. Of course, your key number there is 55. Okay. And so we are saying even not getting 55, we are okay with under 54.5. It's an A grade pick. Model has it at 50. Model's saying your key numbers are 47, 48, 51, 52 are your top likely outcomes, and we get winners on all of those. And so that's a main reason for the under. Colorado can play fast, but their defense has been really good. BYU's been pretty strong on both sides of the ball. Wants to play it a little bit slower. Cousin Jared, how do you feel about this one?
Okay, I'm telling you, wait and see if this goes to 55. For
Fair.
Our purposes of the show, we're going to go ahead and lock this in at 54.5. But I would play this down to 52. So even if it got down to 52, doesn't have a big edge there, I'm still good with going under 52. The Colorado unders have been good to us this season. If you were, and part of that I think is most people were like me and just had a hard time grasping or accepting that the Colorado defense could be as solid as it was.
Yeah, we were mid-season. We did a Colorado game, and I had their defense like in the top 20, and you were like, "What?"
Yeah,
your defense is actually kind of good. I don't know what happened.
And it's continued to go up since then. It's not like they, just had I know that sideline takes all this into consideration, but not like they just had a stretch of easy games and stuff, and it kind of leveled out. No, they've continued to improve. And the other thing is that Deion Sanders has been adamant that you're getting 4 full quarters of effort from all of these really important guys that are still on the team. And if that's the case, I would expect this to play out like a majority of the other Colorado games. And so going under that number is good. The only thing I'll say about BYU is I usually like BYU more at home than I do at a neutral site or on the road. And so, me personally, I'm knocking down BYU just, half a notch or something for playing at a neutral site as opposed to being at home. But I think this game just has the MO of all the other Colorado games this season. So like I said, I'm good going under anything, 52 or more.
And BYU is, of course, not going to want to speed it up. So that helps us out. Because you're at hot take. Bowl games with teams from the same conference might be an improvement because this seems the type of game where both teams are going to want to win simply because I'm not saying there's like the worst bad blood between these two schools, but they are in neighboring states and there's definitely some territorial stuff. There's some stuff about when Colorado got into the Pac-12 and BYU didn't, right? So I feel like there's enough like these. Maybe I'm wrong, but it feels like this could be, with all these conferences getting so big, if we aren't able to play some of these kind of semi-rivalry games, if the Bulls can set them up on the years don't play, absolutely, it could make for more intense football. So, something to think about here. I don't know if this will be a thing going forward or not, the Big 12 team versus Big 12 team, but it's not going to help them really win the, conference challenge thing when you're guaranteed a win and a loss.
Right.
But anyway, we're going to go under 54.5 A grade play because, as you mentioned, viewer, no reason to rush.
Yep.
54 and a half, whatever, if it does go down, because when's the point if it continues to go down where you stop and you say, this is where I'm going to go ahead and just buy in now?
Yeah.
52 and a half.
Yeah. I would say 52 and a half. Like, I would probably do it at 53 though, because like if it's gotten down to 53, it's not bumping back up to 55. Yeah, so I would just probably say like if it gets down to 53, just go ahead and do it.
All right, that will be our show. Again, some reminders there. We've got a bunch of good discount options there in the show description because we plan on doing this again another week. We planned on doing this last week for the first round of the playoff games, but our schedules just did not line up at all. And then I was traveling. So, but we are going to do another show next week. There's 13 games, including the 4 quarterfinal games for the playoff, and we will cover all 4 of those. Because until then, do we have parting words for the viewer?
Not only is college football still going, but lots of work behind the scenes on the college basketball model. So make sure that you're capitalizing on that. Sides, we feel like we're in a decent place with them now. Been tinkering with them. So definitely stick around for college basketball. More plays than you can shake a stick at. And we've talked about this a few times, but college basketball can sometimes feel like a job. And so just start mentally preparing yourself, people, because some of these Saturdays after the new year, college basketball business is going to be booming.
We're really going to push the limits of what percentage of your bankroll should you be allowed to risk in one day, because we're going to try to push it one way or the other with some great college basketball picks. A ton more, of course, coming here over the rest of this winter. We thank you for watching. As always, we wish you the best of luck and remind you that you can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money.